If you've ever looked at a kitten and thought I want to bite it, you aren't a psychopath. Your brain is just panicking. Somewhere between the softness of that fur and the size of those eyes, something misfires. A wave of aggression rides in right behind the affection, and you're left holding two opposite urges at once, both aimed at the same small, defenseless creature. This has a name. Scientists call it cute aggression, and it's far stranger and far more useful than it sounds. Picture the moment. A baby giggles. His cheeks are round. His hands are impossibly small. Something in your chest tightens, and the words arrive almost on their own. I could just eat you up. I want to squeeze you until you pop. You don't mean it. You would never act on it. But the urge is real, and it is not rare. It shows up in nearly everyone, across cultures, across ages, whether the trigger is a puppy, a panda cub, or someone else's newborn. For decades, nobody studied this seriously. It seemed too small, too silly, a throwaway quirk of language, the kind of thing you'd mention in passing and laugh off. Then, in 2013, a Yale psychologist named Oriana Aragon decided to look closer. She and her colleagues ran a study asking people to look at pictures of adorable animals and rate their reactions. Overwhelmingly, participants reported wanting to squeeze, crush, or bite the images in front of them. Not out of cruelty, out of something else entirely. Aragon called this pattern a dimorphous expression of emotion. Two opposite expressions, born from one overwhelming feeling, arriving at the exact same moment, aimed at the exact same target. Here's the part that reframes everything. Your brain does not have infinite ways to express intensity. It has a limited toolkit, built over an enormous stretch of evolutionary time, and that toolkit gets reused constantly. Joy that gets too large has nowhere clean to go, so it borrows the nearest available outlet, and that outlet often looks like aggression. Clenched fists, gritted teeth, the urge to squeeze something small until it disappears into your hands. It isn't really about harming anything. It's about your nervous system running out of road and grabbing whatever expression is closest. Think about what else does this. People cry at weddings. People cry when a long-lost friend finally walks through the door after years apart. Tears, usually reserved for grief, show up uninvited at the happiest moments of a life. Nobody assumes those mourners at a wedding are actually sad. We understand, instinctively, that overwhelming positive emotion can spill out looking like its opposite. Cute aggression works the same way. It's joy dressed briefly as violence, because your body needed somewhere to put all that feeling, and violence happened to be standing nearby. But why would evolution build something so strange? Why not just let happiness be happiness, clean and uncomplicated, without any of this crossed wiring? The answer starts with a face. Not any face, a very specific one. In 1943, an Austrian zoologist named Konrad Lorenz described something he called Kindschema, the baby schema. A set of features, big eyes, a rounded forehead, a small nose, chubby cheeks, that trigger caregiving instincts almost automatically in adult humans. Lorenz noticed that these features weren't limited to human infants. Puppies have them. Kittens have them. Even certain cartoon characters are built around them on purpose, designed by animators who understood the pull long before scientists explained it. Your brain doesn't check the species, it checks the shape. And when the shape matches, something ancient switches on, whether the creature in front of you is your own child or a stranger's golden retriever puppy. That switch exists for a brutal reason. Human infants are born almost entirely helpless. They cannot regulate their own temperature. They cannot feed themselves. They cannot survive more than a few hours without an adult choosing, again and again, to keep them alive. Evolution needed a mechanism strong enough to guarantee that choice, every single time, even at 3 in the morning, even during exhaustion, even during resentment, even when every rational part of the mind wanted only sleep. So it built a trigger that floods the brain with reward the instant it sees those features. Dopamine surges. Attention locks on. Caregiving becomes almost involuntary, less a decision than a reflex. Here's the twist. A flood that strong is dangerous on its own. Overwhelming positive emotion can be paralyzing. Think of how people freeze at the sight of something breathtaking, unable to move, unable to speak. Now imagine that same freeze happening to a parent standing over a crying infant at night. If a caregiver became so overcome with love that they froze, stared, forgot to act, that infant could suffer from neglect born purely from adoration, not indifference. The caregiving system needed a built-in circuit breaker, something to snap the adult out of the daze and back into motion, fast, before the feeling swallowed the response it was supposed to produce. Researchers now believe cute aggression may be exactly that circuit breaker. A small jolt of aggression that interrupts total emotional overload and gets you moving again instead of standing there dazed by how tiny the fingers are. In 2018, a researcher named Catherine Stavropoulos at the University of California, Riverside, tested this directly. She had participants view images of animals, some as adorable baby versions, some as their plainer adult forms, while wearing EEG caps that measured brain activity in real time, millisecond by millisecond. The results lined up with the circuit breaker idea. Looking at the babyish images produced a distinct neural signature, activity tied to both reward processing and emotion regulation, firing together, almost as if the brain were bracing itself against its own response before it could spiral out of control. The cuter the image, the stronger the surge, and the stronger the urge to say something like, "I can't handle how cute this is." Notice that phrase, "I can't handle it." People say it constantly, and they mean it almost literally. The feeling exceeds the available bandwidth. Something has to give the excess feeling somewhere to go, and the nearest exit happens to look like a threat, even though nothing threatening is actually happening anywhere in the room. Aragon's original research went further than surveys. In a follow-up experiment, she gave participants sheets of bubble wrap while showing them a mix of images, some animals at their most exaggeratedly cute, others plain and ordinary. The instructions were simple. Pop as many or as few bubbles as you like while you look. People consistently popped more bubbles during the cutest images. Not because the bubble wrap meant anything. Didn't. It was just the nearest physical outlet available in the room, and the overflow of feeling reached for it automatically, the same way it reaches for a squeeze, a pinch, or a bitten lip in everyday life. Give the nervous system any harmless outlet during peak emotional intensity, and it will use it almost without asking permission first. This also explains why cute aggression rarely, if ever, turns into real harm. The whole system depends on regulation, not release. The aggression that surfaces is symbolic, a pressure valve, not a genuine intention. Brain imaging backs this up too. The regions activated alongside the reward centers are the same regions responsible for keeping emotional responses within safe limits, essentially a built-in brake pedal firing at the exact same time as the accelerator. You feel the urge. You never act on it. That combination, powerful impulse paired with automatic restraint, is the entire point of the mechanism, not a flaw in its design. This is where it stops being just an animal quirk and starts explaining something bigger about you. Your emotional system was never built with delicate, separate channels for every feeling. It was built with a handful of blunt instruments, repurposed constantly depending on the intensity of the moment rather than its category. Aggression is not reserved only for danger. It's reserved for anything that overwhelms the system past a certain threshold. Danger included, but joy included too, and apparently cuteness as well. That's why competitive teammates headbutt each other after a win instead of simply smiling. That's why people scream with what looks almost like fury when a roller coaster finally slows to a stop. That's why fans packed into a stadium can look, for a split second, almost like a riot, the instant their favorite performer steps into the light. You are not malfunctioning when this happens. You are running an ancient regulatory system exactly as designed, using the only tools evolution ever gave it. The mechanism that makes you want to squeeze a puppy is the same broad mechanism that once kept an exhausted parent moving instead of frozen, kept a tribe bonded through shared euphoria instead of scattered by individual overload, kept intensity from tipping into paralysis at the exact moment survival required immediate action instead of a daze. It shows up in smaller ways too, ways you've probably never connected to any of this. The instinct to squeal and grip your own hands together when something is unbearably sweet. The urge to say stop it. Stop being so cute to a baby who obviously cannot stop anything at all. None of it is really about violence. All of it is about a nervous system trying to metabolize more feeling than it was designed to hold in one quiet moment. Now think about the world you actually live in. Your ancestors might have encountered a handful of overwhelmingly cute things across an entire lifetime. A newborn sibling, a litter of pups outside the cave, maybe a fawn stumbling through tall grass in early spring. The trigger fired rarely, and each time it did exactly the job it was built for. You, on the other hand, can summon 1,000 of those triggers before breakfast. A single scroll through a video feed delivers kittens, babies, piglets, and tiny costumes, one after another, an uninterrupted stream of exaggerated cuteness engineered, whether intentionally or not, to hit the same ancient circuit again and again. The algorithm didn't invent the feeling. It just found the oldest button in your head and started pressing it on repeat, far more often than millions of years of evolution ever prepared you for. This is also why entire industries have quietly built themselves around kinshasa without ever naming it. Toy designers exaggerate eyes and shrink noses because they know even without the neuroscience, that the shape sells. Advertisers put puppies in commercials for products that have nothing to do with animals, because the baby schema borrows attention from anything nearby and lends it a warmth it hasn't earned. Even certain dog and cat breeds have been shaped, generation after generation, toward rounder faces and bigger eyes, humans selectively breeding for a trigger they didn't fully understand they were chasing. None of it required anyone to read a single study. The pull was always there, waiting to be exploited the moment someone noticed how strong it was. So the next time you catch yourself staring at a video of a baby otter and feeling the strange urge to crush it gently in your hands, you can let that thought pass without alarm. It isn't cruelty hiding inside you. It's an alarm system older than language doing exactly the job it evolved to do. Keeping you moving, keeping you present, keeping the overwhelming softness of the world from freezing you in place when the moment actually called for action. If you've ever looked at a kitten and thought I want to bite it, you aren't a psychopath. You're just proof that your brain still remembers what it took to keep something small and helpless alive.